Welcome to the latest generation of the BMW 5 Series. In this case, what we have here is the electric version, the 2024 BMW i5. In this video, let's see just how good of a luxury sedan this car is, especially now that it has grown so much. And frankly, it even reminds me of a 7 Series already. So what do I exactly mean that it reminds me of a 7 Series? Well, just take a look at the size of this vehicle. This has grown so much. In fact, this is the biggest 5 Series ever made. And it also uses the same modular platform as the current 7 Series. So really, this car is massive. I once parked beside a Ford Everest and a Mitsubishi Montero Sport, and this is even slightly longer than those. It's crazy. Now, anyway, starting off from the front here in terms of the design, I really love the design of the hood. It's not very plain. There's a lot of shapes on it. There's a lot of creases on it too. It just gives it a very distinctive look. And you'll also notice just how long that hood is. I mean, 5 Series have always had long hoods, right? And short trunks. But this one, this is just on a next level. And speaking of distinctive looks, it's these center grills right here. Obviously, they're not real grills because it is an electric car and you don't really need airflow, but it has what they call the iconic glow, so there's lights all around it. So at night, this one will look very unique on the road and will definitely stand out. The lighting assembly too, LED headlamps of course, but they're so bright and so clear that BMW did not even find the need to give you fog lights anymore. Now let's move on over towards the side of the BMW i5, and over here, this is where you'll really appreciate the size of this vehicle, not just for its length, but also for its width. Also notice here just how long, again, that hood is compared to the shortness of the trunk, and then the rims too. 19 inches, definitely massive rims, 245 4519s wrapped in a set of Pirelli P0 tires. Just to add a little bit more character to the look of the 5 Series, BMW also gave you some of this like crystal patterns down there by the running boards, and just to make sure it's not like Mercedes-Benz where you can barely tell the difference between a C, E, and an S-Class, they gave you the badge of 5 right here by the quarter panel. Now let's move on over towards the rear right here, and the only way you can tell that this is an i5, the electric 5 Series and not the regular 5 Series, is aside from the badge. Remember, the BMW badge, which has a blue ring on it, which denotes that it is electric. You have the eDrive40 over here, and of course, no tailpipes as well. This trunk, this is power operated, so if you're incredibly lazy, this is the way to go. And over here, you'll see that space isn't really good. And there's this massive donut at the back, right? That's because for this i5, BMW had to put the batteries there by the rear seats as well as on the center tunnel, thereby reducing your boot space by a huge margin. So yeah, you can barely fit things in here if you do have this spare tire, but if you want to risk it and just ditch the spare tire, you can still put a couple of huge luggages in here. Of course, closing this one, you just press a button. It takes a while, but it seals itself shut. Now let's talk about the powertrain. This is electric, right? So you don't really have an engine over here, but as usual, we'll open up the hood just for tradition's sake. So anyway, what you have here is a rear-wheel drive motor, 81.2 kilowatt hours of battery, giving you 340 horsepower and 413 Newton meters of torque. Plenty of power for the size of this vehicle, right? But in terms of weight, this car is ridiculously heavy. This weighs 2,205 kilograms or 2.2 tons. So BMW claims that your range of this one is about 498 to 580 plus kilometers on a single charge. But based on our real-life tests, this is in mixed conditions, both inside heavy city traffic and on the highway. You'll realistically return only around 276 kilometers on a single charge, which honestly is not great for an electric vehicle. It does give me range anxiety all the time. However, when it comes to your 0 to 100 time, despite the size and the weight of this one, you'll get a very, very respectable 5.7 seconds. That is impressive. Now let's move inside the BMW i5, and it is a European car after all, so door thud checks will be very important, which we'll do now. I love the sound. Okay, so inside here, materials are top-notch for the most part. So I'm talking about your dashboard, the doors, the seats, and every single thing that you touch in here would be covered either in very high quality plastic, in some sort of a crystal effect, or super supple leather, with one exception. So if you look at the panel for your window switches, in older BMWs, they felt very high quality, felt like they're made out of metal, even though they're not. But this one, it straight up looks like it's made out of pretty cheap feeling plastic. Not a big fan of that. Oh, and the turn signal stock too, that's another culprit right here. But again, aside from those, this is very premium. Let's go to the steering wheel first. 2-spoke design, so it's more regal feeling, really more BMW 7 Series like or S-Class like. This is also power adjustable. And speaking of power adjustments, you get power adjustments for both front seats, and you even have memory functions for the driver's side at least. Now, on the side too, you'll notice that there are those memory setting buttons, but my issue with them, together with the door lock and unlock, they're all haptic touch buttons. So it's kind of hard to press them. You really kind of have to, like, I don't know, you just put your hand in there, your finger in there, and make sure it works. It really does take a while. Now let's move on over to the center, and you have a dual screen setup. Absolutely massive, runs BMW's iDrive 8.5. Easy to use for the most part once you get used to it. And it's super responsive too. Comes with wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto in a very clear reverse camera. Unfortunately, you do not get a 360-degree view camera. And also, unfortunately, your AC settings, they're all found in there. So while you're driving, it does get slightly distracting. Now, you also notice that there's a lot of these like crystal effects in here. So this is pretty cool because this is where your ambient lighting shows up. And if, for example, you turn on your hazard switch, which by the way is also haptic, look at that. That is really cool looking. Is it gimmicky? Honestly so, but is it cool? Definitely so. If you'll also notice, for your air vents, it's all haptic to turn them on and off. And if you want to adjust them, you don't have like those plastic bits that break off all the time. You have this thing at the bottom. It just makes everything look and feel a lot classier. Good job on that, BMW. Now, there is another wireless charging pad over here, and it is super quick and doesn't heat up. I swear, you can be using wireless Apple CarPlay with this one and Waze with location services, and it will still charge your phone all the way up to 100%. Excellent. First car ever to do that. 2 cup holders, this slightly floating looking center panel, lots of piano black on it, slight fingerprint magnet, but it looks really nice. Crystal effects for your shifter, for this center iDrive controller, and you even have this center console which opens to both sides. Now, for other stuff in here, you get a 12-speaker Harman Kardon sound system, you get 8 airbags too, and yeah, unfortunately, that's about it. You don't really get a panoramic sunroof nor a regular sunroof, and you don't even get advanced driver assistance systems. Oh, wait, finally, the seats, they're super comfortable, very wide feeling, and the bolsters, there's a way to adjust them, which I'll show you later on in the driving segment. And in usual BMW fashion, there is even this manually adjustable thigh support movement. Really nice. Now for the rear seats, first we also check the door thud. And that sounds so good, so much better even than the front. Top-notch quality. Okay, so back here in regular BMW fashion, if you take a look at your seats, the bottom part of it, the seat bottom is angled upwards, which does give you extra legroom. In terms of legroom, really, there's nothing much to ask for over here. However, oddly, I don't know why BMW did this, they gave you these seat backs that are incredibly upright. So when it comes to super long journeys, I don't think this will be the most comfortable feeling. I just wish that they reclined it a little bit more. However, here at the back, what you do get though are your own air vents, your 2 USB-C ports, and your very own dual zone climate control for a total of quad zones inside this vehicle. You also get this power adjustable, power retracting sun blind at the back, which can be controlled from the driver's window switch panel. And you also have these manually adjustable or manually retractable sun blinds at the side for a very relaxing experience. Now, as you do open up this center armrest, you'll find that it's very thick too, very plush with 2 cup holders. And oddly, again, BMW did not give you rear map pockets for a car of this caliber. Why? I really have no idea. Also, if you're gonna ask me why there is a center tunnel right here, that's because this car has its batteries right here by the center tunnel, as well as behind the rear seats and under the rear seats. So yeah, there's that. Seating 3 people here abreast while the car is wide can be a little bit of a struggle because of that center tunnel. So now we drive the BMW i5. First thing that you'll immediately notice is just how big this car is. So does it feel like a 7 Series? Honestly, for the most part, yes, it truly feels massive, both in terms of length as well as in width. Back in the day, the only reason that you would get a 5 Series is because it is so much better to drive compared to an E-Class. However, the common trade-off for that would be it's gonna ride a lot worse compared to an E-Class. But nowadays, especially with this generation, the G60, it's ridiculously comfortable. I mean, I really don't have any need to go for an E-Class or even a 7 Series. This is about as good as it gets. It's super comfortable, both in terms of quietness, and especially because it's electric, so you don't have that gasoline or diesel engine rumble, and the way it soaks bumps too. This is how 7 Series of the past and E-Classes of the past felt. This just does everything so well. So now you're gonna ask, okay, now that it's very comfortable, does it still handle well? Well, surprisingly, at least for a car of this size and a car of this weight, it is really good. This handles pretty well. What I don't like about it though is the steering. It is a little bit too light, even if you put this in the sport mode. And in older BMWs, you can easily adjust the lumbar, the bolsters on the side, right? You just adjust it through your seat. This one you can't. However, if you put the car into sport mode, as I will do now, yes, those bolsters will adjust to give you a more dynamic seat feel inside here. And in sport mode, the very moment you step on the throttle, this car just takes off. You have a 0 to 100 time of around 5.7 seconds. Absolutely excellent for a car this big. And because you have all that instant torque, instant power in here, you will never find yourself lacking. This truly is all you need insofar as performance as well as comfort. Now let's move on to just how quiet this car is. I mean, you can just be going at the highway, you can be going way over legal speeds in this one. You can be going at Mexico or Germany speeds, and it is still whisper quiet. Because of how quiet everything is, because you don't have the gasoline engine, you will hear just a little bit of road noise, but it isn't too bad really, even again at those extra legal speeds. If you want to take highway long trips very often with this BMW i5, it's excellent. You won't get tired. The seats are incredibly comfortable. It truly is just amazing in here. I want to go back to the size though, and I do have an issue with this vehicle. First of all would be the turning radius. It's a little bit on the large side, and when you're going through ramps, for example, because of how long the wheelbase is and how low this car is, it does have a tendency to scrape too. Take it for drive-thrus, for example, and it is pretty hard to maneuver. If you want to park this car too, I've never thought that I would have difficulty parking sedans, especially because I'm used to, well, I learned how to drive in the likes of the Ford Expedition, right? And I drive the Toyota Land Cruiser, the full-size one, pretty often, but this is kind of hard to park. In terms of maneuverability, this is pretty difficult. This is one of those cars that I know in the past 5 series are meant to be driver-focused vehicles, but this can easily be a hybrid between a driver-focused vehicle as well as a chauffeur-driven type of vehicle. Another thing that I do have to commend BMW for, and the BMW i5 for that matter, is just how smooth the throttle is. I mean, in a lot of electric cars, in most electric cars, they tend to be very jerky, especially if you're in stop-and-go traffic, especially if you activate the single pedal driving function. But for this one in the i5, it's just so easy to modulate. If you want to use just one single pedal, you can easily just taper your foot off of the throttle, and it will smoothly brake you and bring you to a complete stop. And also, the throttle response that you get in here, it truly is power on demand. You don't even need to put this in sport mode, honestly. It's buttery smooth. It feels as close to an ICE. There's just nothing to complain about it. However, with all those upsides out of the way, we do have to talk about one major downside that the i5 has, or at least the spec that we get here in the Philippines, and that would be its advanced driver assistance systems, or lack thereof. Because while you do get lane departure warning, and you also do get traditional cruise control as well as a speed limiter, you don't get the usual things that you get in cars that's literally worth, I don't know, like 1/5 the price of this vehicle. You don't get adaptive cruise control, you don't get autonomous emergency braking, and you don't even get things like lane keeping assist. I mean, at this price, is that even acceptable? Seriously, like BMW Philippines, bring in those specs, and I'm sure that your customers would be more than willing to pay extra for those convenience functions. So is the BMW i5 eDrive40 any good as a luxury sedan? I would say yes. If in the past, BMW 5 Series are just made to be driver-focused vehicle, to be fun to drive mid-sized luxury sedans, now they've been able to do all of that still while giving you new forms of energy in the form of this electric vehicle, as well as a ridiculous amount of comfort that frankly is pretty similar not only to a 7 Series but even to its main competitor, the Mercedes-Benz E-Class. So at 5,790,000 pesos, I think that the BMW i5 eDrive40, while it's not the best when it comes to range, if most of your daily trips will just be centered around Metro Manila and the nearby provinces, this is a car that will not only give you lots of fun while driving, but will also get you there super comfortably, and is also pretty good value for money, especially considering the badge that you have up front.